Welcome to the Flat Track Factory. Sammy, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise, man.
Yeah. So we've sort of met. I don't know, we've said hello in the paddock for, I don't know, about 10 years or
Right.
so, but I don't know, we really had much of a chance to talk. And I don't know, a year ago, we were at a race, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? And I live in Charlotte now. So as you all know, I live in Charlotte. So we had a fun, kind of serendipitous racetrack experience the other night. I was going to have a friend of the channel, Davey Durrell, ride the bike, and he just wasn't feeling it. So I was just down there hanging out and did the riders meeting, and then saw Sammy. I'm like, oh, he lives in Charlotte. So I went over, and what happened?
Yeah. Dylan came up and said hey, and he was like, I need to consult with you about some social media stuff. And I'm like, dude, I need to consult with you about my bike because I went out for a first practice session and I was riding my Honda 450. It's like a little bit of an older bike, an '09 Honda, and I went out on the track and held her wide open, and it just was not happy. It was not making power, and it's like about to tie up. So I parked my bike and was like, kind of head in hands, like, what am I gonna do? I just drove 2 hours to come to the
Mhm.
local race. My bike's not running. It's not running right. Probably shouldn't race it anymore. And then luckily he was here with the beast with the Rotax, and so got to race his Rotax. Worked out really nice. Like I haven't raced a Rotax in a long time. Obviously a really unique bike. The Rotax means a lot to me and my family. The Rotax actually, like I grew up racing the Rotax
Really? Okay.
yeah. So when I was 14, I was as soon as I turned 14, I was on a 600 Rotax at the local indoor short
So was the
tracks.
Rotax an it bike back then?
Oh, for sure, for sure. So I guess that would have been like '02 around then. And yeah, so that was the bike to have. And so I was on the Rotax 600 racing the local pro class at
Mhm.
14 and every weekend. And my dad got good at doing fiberglass because I was running at the front of the pack, but I was crashing her every weekend.
Ugh.
So we were replacing the fiberglass like every single weekend. I grew up doing indoor short tracks, and
Okay.
that's kind of like how the Slam and Sammy nickname came along because I
Mhm.
wasn't getting whole shots, but I was slamming my way through the pack. So that's
Fiberglass everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Um, so I get tons of questions about this, and you're sort of uniquely set. Davey's done this, and he talked a little bit about it, but I'd love to get your perspective. So tell me, or tell them, why what what are the biggest differences between riding a DTX and a framer?
Yeah, so with the DTX bike, the motocross based bikes, and the difference to the flat track framers, one of the main things is like the framers are built for turning left. So they like with the motocross bikes, they've come a long ways and we've adapted to them and they work pretty well. But the framers are just built for going in circles. So they just like they're lower to the ground. They just like if the track's smooth, nothing grips like the framer. They just grip better, they churn better. You can like for a guy like me that knows how to ride them, it's so fun. Like you can really get them low and just have more traction. So if the track's rough, it can be challenging because with the non-leakage suspension, like just maybe doesn't handle the bumps as well. I
Yeah.
think also because they grip more, they have more traction. I think they hook on the bumps more
Hmm.
than like gliding over them. But when the track is smooth, there's nothing like a framer. And with a 450 framer, like with a dirt bike motor inside of one of
Yeah.
these, it's tricky because they're so light. They're so light and nimble. Like they can work good, but they're tricky. With the Rotax, it's a little bit of a like bigger, heavier motor, so it's a little more planted to the ground.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit more. It's like super user friendly with the power on the Rotax, just like whoa, that nice lazy power,
Yeah, so
which
so we've on the channel we've had technical explanation of that, and some engine builders have commented below about the rotational mass and the moment of inertia that you just can't, the crankcase on a 450, even if you could get enough weight in there, the crank is just this big. The Rotax crank is this big, and that's the physical thing that the bigger the rotating mass is. So that's the technical explanation. And I'll put a link, a card up here to talk about that.
yeah, so obviously, like when you're racing on slippery dirt, that initial throttle opening is so important to not hit too hard. So like the Rotax power is really nice for slippery tracks.
Can you tell them, do you remember? This really is, I mean, there's a lot of jokes in the video that you brought to the channel. I noticed we got beat up because we had a little technical detail, and yeah, I'd take my lumps on that. Yep, yeah, we did have a little electrical glitch, but Um, it's really not a vintage bike. I mean, this has been, Mike Owen at J&M Frames has been working on it, updating it. It's a newer chassis design. The engine is brand new for 2023. So can you tell the difference? Do you remember the difference? Is this just pretty much same Rotax, or is it have a different sensation than what
Well,
you remember?
so this is like what you call it, a 680 or 676.
676, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have a ton of experience on the 676. Like mainly I rode 600cc Rotaxes or like we even had to sleep them down to 505s for
Yeah.
the rules. And with the
505 Rotaxes are not good.
yeah, the 600, like I really like the 600 because with the 600 you can rev them out really high,
Mhm.
um, and and so that's what I've used to racing as far as the Rotax is. With the big bore, you don't want to rev it so high,
Yeah.
right? That big piston don't want to rev
Tweak
so
the
high.
crank, yeah.
So I'm so used to riding like at high revs.
Mhm.
So that was the biggest adjustment for me riding this thing.
And we were actually kind of arguing about
Yeah, yeah,
it.
because well, that and the rev limiter, like he's got a rev limiter in this thing, which is super unique. And I was only getting into the soft limiter,
Mhm.
which actually wasn't that different than like the limiter on a 450 hitting the soft limiter. And so I was like, I was happy hitting the limiter, and I was like, that's fine, we'll leave it like that. But then once I like came around to
Mhm.
the 680 thinking, the big bore thinking, and we dropped the tooth, it was better even though it was way lower in the RPMs than I thought I wanted it to be in the
Yeah.
corner, it worked well
What did I
actually.
tell you? You got 450 brain.
Yeah, I got 450 brain.
And I really think that we should have dropped another tooth, but I just don't think he was ready for it. I think, and we haven't talked about this yet,
Yeah,
but I think you could go faster on it next time.
yeah, for sure. I mean, we started off in fourth gear, and then we switched to running third gear with a tiny sprocket on the rear, and then we dropped a tooth for the before the dash, and then we dropped a tooth before the second main, and it helped dropping the tooth. But then, like looking back at the footage, you can hear I'm on the limiter again even after dropping all those teeth, and so I think we probably go back to running fourth gear.
Let's
Um,
let's let's try to get a bit of reality here. I'm gonna set him up. Tell the truth. You thought I was an idiot.
as far as what
Like setup. You don't want to listen to me. Like this old god cadre doesn't know what he's talking about.
Nah, I wouldn't say I took it that far. I just like for me, I'm just not used to like lugging them like that.
It's
And
weird,
even
isn't
my experience racing the Rotax
it?
is I still wanted them to be revved out high, like on the 600s. That was what worked best for
I
us.
think I think that if he got back on the 600 he is telling you about, that he would think that was lugging too. I think he's got 450 brain.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
even like racing the modern twins and stuff, we're revving out the twins,
yeah, yeah,
bouncing
yeah.
off the limiter. I mean, now this year I'm going to be on the XR 750, which is a
Oh,
unique thing,
so
but
now you're sort of back to this thing.
yeah, back on the vintage iron, like, and so, but the XR is actually, I mean, I rev them out pretty high too, which the guys I'm riding for, they don't love it because they're like take teeth
Because
off,
they're paying for it.
and I'm like, no, no, stack a couple teeth on, let her eat. but but yeah, it works good like that. But yeah, it's tough for me to come around to the lugging it aspect. So used to just like having them revved out, coming off the corner where they're sometimes coming off the corner you're almost like over that peak torque so when you hit the gas it
Yeah.
doesn't just like spinning around backwards
Well,
but
we had a fun conversation. My engine builder, we always communicate back and forth while this is going on, and it was interesting that he authorized with Sammy on the bikes and stuff. I didn't think he would authorize. So I don't know. Sammy and I had some tense contract negotiations to get on the bike. Um, a couple like seriously, and a couple like seriously, but we may we may do that again. I think we have unfinished business.
yeah, no, it would be really cool to race it again. Especially like the unique thing about the race we just did was we just went and hit a local race. Like no big deal. I thought go hit the local race.
That's
Like
not what
it
what
would be
happened.
super chill. Like I'm not gonna worry about my setup that much. I'm just gonna like throw the bike in the van, go to the race. We get there and it's like the last year's champ was there, Cody Kopp. We got the Turner Honda team. We got the new up and comers that are getting ready to turn pro. All these kids on their 450s just like slinging it, and it's
Yeah,
like, oh man, all right, I'm gonna have to try.
yeah.
But it's cool. It's nice when all those guys come out and it makes you level up. And then the fact that we were like about to win, we were leading the thing, about to win against
Hmm.
against those guys, which would have made it extra cool. Now, if we go hit another local race, it'll be cool. We'll have fun, but
Yeah.
it's not going to mean as much unless we got some of the gunslingers out there, which you just never know when those guys are going to come
I mean,
out.
but that's
But
that's why we love racing, right? I mean, ifs, buts, candies, nuts. That one's gonna sting a long time. I don't know why, but I got pumped really
Yeah,
about that. So
yeah.
what? One more thing that there's a group of um, current luminaries and fast guys that maybe wonder or state the Rotax is a myth. Is a Rotax still relevant?
I mean, clearly, like we were leading the freaking race, we were about to beat those guys on it. So, and honestly, the riding it at times it felt like holy, like this thing is like cheating at certain aspects, like when the track is a certain way, and like it felt like cheating. Like there's certain points of the corner where the guys on the 450s could maybe churn a little more aggressively and like maybe pop through like the mid to exit a little more aggressively. But if depending on how the track is, like you
Yeah.
could the roll speed on the Rotax, and then as soon as I got on the straightaway, it was like, whoa, like on the 450s, like just rolling right up on them. So it definitely can still win races. It can actually still like be like cheating. Like it's like ridiculous.
And you know that we were in 4 horsepower down configuration.
Yeah, and like honestly, like I haven't rode like a Rotax in so long, and I'm racing against these kids that are like honed in on their 450s, and I
Yeah.
just jumped on the thing like some random dude's Rotax, and he had like a freaking 800-pound shock spring. It felt like the thing like was so stiff. No, I don't know. It was just like I typically run him a little softer. It was a little stiff, I thought, but
Mhm.
that it worked good. So maybe he got it stiff for a reason. It seemed to work all right.
I think it works pretty good. We're fairly close to the same size. Um, both a little short. But yeah, I might try that. But I really think that we've got a pretty good combo. And I'd love to do it again if we can make that work and get what we're owed.
Yeah, I mean, if you pay me enough, I'll ride
Mm,
anything.
if you pay me enough, I'll let you ride. All right, guys. That's straight from the Sammy's mouth. You're not going to get much more of a relevant uh, opinion. He's ridden all over the world and he's ridden everything and won races. And I'm super pumped that we got to hook up. So stick around. We'll probably have a couple of videos with Sammy coming out and some collaborations. If you'd like to see some of his channel, you've got to subscribe to his channel. It's just he has the best onboard footage you'll see. Great editing stuff and that Sammy personality that is pretty unique. So, hey man, thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming.
man. Thanks. I enjoyed it.